So let's add a movie that is going to take this weekend and turn it into a romantic journey.
Yes.
Because that's what we need.
So JP, he seemed to find a soft spot for today's release. What's love got to do with it?
What's love got to do with anything? We continue his series of interviews now with the amazing cast and crew. And this time, he is going to be sitting down with the musical team that are weaving the soundscape of worlds colliding in love.
You're right. So here he is with composer Nitin Soni, whose works include Mowgli as well as The Human Planet. That's series 2. So DJ producer Naughty Boy as well, whose previous collaborators include Dua Lipa, Ed Sheeran, and the one and only Beyonce. This is big.
So I've got here Nitin Soni and Naughty Boy from the musical aspect of What's Love Got to Do With It. Firstly, I've got to say congratulations, guys. As you know, half of movie making is the soundtrack, and for this movie to feel as naturalistic as it does, as a rom-com, it's nothing feels canned or anything. I think that a lot of that is owed to the work that you guys did.
Cool, thank you.
Wow,
it's very kind of you.
And then also, I must say, congrats to Naughty Boy. This is your first foray into
yes,
making for film.
Yes, it's first time. Don't think it's going to be the last, but I'm glad I did it with Nitin. Yeah.
Did it feel like a totally different ball game from what you usually do?
100%. I think when you're making music visually, the last time I did that before this film was in my GCSE exam when it was to a painting. But I think you just have to be a bit more aware when you're making music for film or music for visual, because you can't be as selfish as you are when you're just producing for the radio, where this is the sound, this is how it's supposed to be. You have to bring in a lot of other important opinions and the characters as well. So I've learned a lot just by being part of this with Nitin.
And for your guys' production process, is it the case that Director Kapoor painted the picture for you beforehand, or that you got to work in post-production on this movie?
I mean, it was a constant symbiotic process. I mean, like, you know, we were constantly bouncing ideas off Shekhar, but also Jemima was quite closely involved. We were all talking through, because I think it couldn't really be anyone's single vision. I think it had to be a collaborative process. It had to be about finding a universe, because it was also a coming together of worlds. And I think that had to happen behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera. So I think, you know, in lots of ways, it was about evolving that language, and that needed everyone to kind of really explore what it meant to find ourselves on the same page.
There's so much breadth to everything that you guys want to cover, and despite that, every box, every marker is hit like in a way that feels like this wasn't undertreated. This aspect of culture, this aspect of great stuff, really thought-provoking. Now, speaking of those sort of like, you know, things that people can hit and miss in some ways, I got to admit that going into What's Love Got to Do With It, and with no info on who does what and who is working on what, I did clench up at one point where I was like, oh, great, here comes the Orientalism in the soundtrack. You know, like the flutes doing the, ooh, we're in Lahore now, or whatever. So Nitin, as a composer, what are your rules? What are your frameworks for how you build this thing from the ground up? And what are your influences? Well,
first of all, when to respond to that, what you also have with when the flute does come in, you know, with the bansuri, you have one of the world's greatest bansuri players with Ashwin Srinivasan, who's in my band, who's an incredible artist, and you know, who works closely with A.R. Rahman, who's an incredible. So in terms of Orientalism, you know, this isn't the Edward Said kind of version of things. This was, you know, this is very much about authenticity. So I mean, for example, with Rag Desh, which is what Ashwin's playing in some of the wedding scenes, that's very important to me. It's a rag that I used in my own work, and I think what we were trying to do was really find authenticity in the way we built things up. I mean, you know, we have the Western strings, but you know, when we work together on the song, you know, we're bringing together some incredible artists. Kanika Kapoor. You also have, you've also got Lily James, who appears on the latest version of the song. But then you've got an iteration with Joy Crooks, and Joy Crooks is doing really well. She was Mercury nominated this year. She's an amazing artist, and
Billy Khan.
Yeah, and Billy Khan, who's rapping. You know, so my whole thing is that there's a language in this that I do think is unique in so many different ways, and it's rooted quite authentically authentically in the experiences of the people who all have, who've all at some point in their lives had to navigate and negotiate their lives between two worlds. And I think that's the case with all of us. So I think the thing about this film that is unique is how clear the experiences of the people involved in the making of it, because that's what you really get, is a genuine sense of two worlds coming together.
It was refreshing as well.
Yes.
Even as someone who's a non-Muslim, to see Muslim life portrayed humanely as it was, great job also from yourselves as the people behind the soundscape of.
Yeah, and also just before we finish, it's like everyone's gets normalized in this film. There's no standout, oh, there's something wrong here or there's something not right there. It's like everyone's basically doing the same thing, striving for the same thing. We just sometimes look a bit different, but
that's a great word, you see, because normalization is used a lot in the political world and in other ways in the media, even to dehumanize people. What's good is that humanization, understanding people as human beings is what's normalized in this film. And I think that's why it works as a kind of counterculture to what's out there, because it as a film. And I think that's what's exciting about it. I mean, Naughty Boy actually called it revolutionary recently, which sounds like a strong word for something that's essentially a rom-com, but at the same time, what it stands for and what it represents and what it says is definitely radical.
And like I said right at the top, like you guys swing and surprisingly you don't miss, even though you're hitting all of those really difficult subjects. So I've got to say, great job. This is goodbye, gentlemen.
Very kind of you. Yeah, cheers. Appreciate that a lot.
Thanks, was great. Thank you very
nice
much.
Fun. Thanks.
Joey works them, eh? You can see the smoke coming out of his guest's ears. I don't think there is a better movie critic in the world right now, to be honest. Well done, son. And the movie looks amazing and sounds amazing, clearly.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Wow, with that music, this might be the most important movie we've ever done. Okay, so we put Carl back on charge so he can do another 2.5 minutes of dance just now. And we're going to focus on date night tonight.
Yeah, I love date night, okay? What's love got to do with it?
Really?
I mean, that's the name of the movie, actually. Lily James and Shazad Latif are both trying to make sense of romance in the age of right swipes and matrimonial rights.
And brilliant screenwriter Jemima Khan lends part of her own life story to the scripting of this particular one, from her experience as a journalist from the UK to Pakistan as editor-at-large for Vanity Fair to The Independent. She has the narrative, and it plays out in this movie, and she joins JP right now to dig a little deeper.
What's love got to do with it? There are dimensions, obviously, for you as the writer of this story that are personal, that are autobiographical in a sense. But you challenge this, or you wrestle with this really large topic of arranged marriage, or as it's referred to at times in your own movie as assisted marriage. Which comes first? Like writing, how do you even start the story? Is it that subject that you wanted to have your eye on, or your personal story? Where did it all begin?
Well, firstly, 3,000 years ago. I mean, it took so long. And it's definitely kind of morphed over time. But I knew that I wanted to write something about what was inspired by my time in Pakistan, where I went to when I was 20 and I came back when I was 30. So I kind of definitely felt like I sort of grew up there. And I was interested, I was a journalist before I started making TV and film. And I'd had both first-hand experience of seeing arranged marriages in action, long-term, and as they were being arranged in Pakistan, because my ex-husband's family is pretty conservative, and our marriage was the only non-arranged marriage ever in the history of his family. Jeez. And so I went there with a sort of fixed idea that it was some kind of outdated premise that had no place in the modern world, and all of those ideas, and then having seen what were very happy and successful arranged marriages up close, I mean, with people that I lived with. So it wasn't like I just saw them for dinner. I lived with these couples who'd had arranged marriages. And so I had those preconceptions really challenged. And that then kind of informed my kind of life experience thereafter. So when I came back to the UK, and my friends were at the point where they wanted to kind of get married and have kids, or certainly have kids and settle down, that we had this conversation, you know, who would your parents have chosen for you? Like who if you had sane, functional parents who could agree with each other, who would they have chosen for you, and would that have worked? You know, and so I guess that's where the sort of idea for the script came from. But I mean, as I said, as I worked through the Jurassic era to the present day, it finally turned into what is about to appear on our screens.
And I want to tell everyone who's watching, like, especially for a rom-com, people try to touch all sorts of bases, hit all sorts of marks and whatever, and it's you might have bitten off more than you can chew and whatever. But I was really impressed with how all the topics you sort of cover, like, it never felt undertreated. So aside from something like arranged marriage, you mainly portraying a Muslim family life, which, you know, even as an irreligious person myself, just ideologically, I thought it was really beautiful, just very touching. But so aside from that topic, what other topics are you tackling in What's Love Got to Do with It?
I think it's about family and family love as much as it is about romantic love. We've already discussed that it's kind of, you know, it's about the different types of love. So from romantic to companionate love. And you're right, I think that it is also about a normal Muslim family. There were certain things that when I was in Pakistan that my friends there would get really annoyed by. So they get annoyed by how Pakistan and Pakistanis were often portrayed on screen in the West, often as like backwards or as terrorists or as, you know, fanatics, and that, you know, there weren't, you know, so that was one thing. Also how arranged marriage was often depicted. And, you know, I have this British friend of Pakistani descent here who said that she was always really, really embarrassed to say that her parents had had an arranged marriage and that they'd met on the wedding day, and that having watched this film, she was so lovely. And she said, I was so ashamed that I even got married in like a white wedding dress, and I'm going to do my vows. I'm going to take my vows again. I'm going to do it as a proper Pakistani Muslim celebration, even though she's married for 20 years.
Nikah, if I have that correct.
It's gonna do, yeah, the nikah is the actual legal marriage, but the fun bit is the shadi and the walima and all of that. So anyway, she was going to do it again. So that was really, really nice to hear.
Just the array of topics that all those bases that you touched. It's very thought-provoking what you gave. Like I said, nothing felt undertreated, nothing felt too throwaway or anything like that. And if people are just treating it like a date night movie, they're going to be sorely disappointed that they're going to have to come out going, wow, I'm using my brain. I have to like actually have conversation with my significant other over dinner afterwards. It's great stuff. And it takes an interesting perspective on whether love is the be all and end all, and what the nature of love, like you said, whether familial, et cetera, and honesty is all about. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Oh man, as interviewers, you always look for that look on the person that you've been talking to's face when it's done. And you can see how much everyone attached to that property has loved going through this journey with JP. So well done, buddy. As always, absolutely amazing. If you've got a date night coming up, I think you know how you need to spend it. But we've got a weekend coming up, and I think I know how we need to spend it.